Welcome to The Flip Side. This is Gulnarveer Krishna, and today's episode is with someone extremely special to all children out there. No, I'm joking, it's us parents. She is on our speed dive, Dr. Sivaranjani Santosh. She's not just a pediatrician, she's a voice, an advocate, and a force that's changing the way parents understand their children today. Her work goes far beyond consultations. She guides parents, communities, policymakers to rethink how we raise, protect, and nurture the children of today's changing world. On the flip side, we explore the woman behind the white coat, her purpose, resilience, and the emotional depth required to stand at the intersection of medicine, advocacy, and motherhood. Welcome to The Flip Side, ma'am. Thank you so much for coming. You are on my speed dial. I can't think of anyone when even a little sneeze happens, you're the first one I call. But what really has touched me over the years is how you've literally held my hand through all the hurdles that we faced when it comes to the little one's health. So I'm sure you do the same thing with a lot of other parents, and in fact all of us swear by you because you're holding our hands in that anxiety, in that turmoil where of course your little one is unwell, you don't know where to go, what to do. And I want to also today touch upon who are you when you're not that doctor for all of us.
I'm a mom, a daughter, a wife.
Oh, so sweet. I love your
friend.
daughter. Yeah, I love your daughter. In fact, I was just going to say, when I also think of you, the first thing I do think of is that of course, being a mom first. So how has that journey been for you in terms of moving towards pediatrician as well? Like you are a pediatrician, you're practicing it, of course, but that is a profession. And here, was there any emotional moment that made you realize, or was it through your journey of motherhood that made you realize that this is what you're going to do and be?
The pediatrician Sivaranjani was before becoming a mother, and the pediatrician Sivaranjani is after becoming a mother. There is so much difference. So you're more, I put myself in the parent shoes much more now when I take care of the children. So the perspective changed drastically. Yeah. Even before that also we were empathetic, but the empathy level is like now like this, because you understand how a parent feels like when the little one is sick. So yeah, it's a different Sivaranjani.
But was it a series of emotional events that led you to choosing this profession, or was it, something that you always aspired to be? What was that turning point in your life? Because I think all of us have that little dream that we want to be, something, and then of course life happens and you end up having a completely different career. Or was it very focused from day one in your case?
Actually, there was no turning point as such. I always wanted to become a doctor. I always wanted to serve my people. Very idealistic always, and even now I'm idealistic, and I don't think I've achieved even 1% of what I was aiming at. So a long way to go. And pediatrics also, like, it was like, if I don't get pediatrics, I won't choose anything else. I'll again try for pediatrics. So uh, I think I was made for this only.
So, was it any memory where your love for children that helped you shape your destiny yourself?
No, that's what, like, I don't have one particular memory. It just like, I'm made for this only. I'm made for this only.
It's so wonderful, actually, when you discover a purpose in life. Because I remember through a spiritual practice, I discovered my purpose in life was empowerment. And whatever I do today, any project, any campaign, it's always to empower oneself and another. Ma'am, today you're also a brand yourself. Of course, I'm a brand manager by profession. Brand strategist is something that also learned along the way. So I know that when you see people, apart from product or service, today you've become a brand yourself. So in terms of all the in fact, a lot of campaigns also that you have been running to make all parents today realize what they should not be doing for their children. What is the flip side of you being a brand in this space?
I'm feeling the pressure a little bit now. I mean, when I worked for a cause, I'm feeling the pressure now. So, when I was actually fighting for a cause and trying to reach it to its logical conclusion, yes, there were moments when I was scared, when I was dejected, but I persisted. But now there are so many medical students, so many youngsters, so many resident doctors who are looking up to me for support to reach their causes, their good causes to logical conclusion. So I'm finding it a little overwhelming, and it's becoming a little difficult to balance, work and life. But I'm there. I'm not going to. I'm going to be there for you, and I'm not going to let you down.
But in every profession, we see that there's an emotional labor that we carry that nobody really sees. Everybody, obviously, like I said, you are on my speed dial, but then there are days when I will message you late at night or early morning. It's all the time, okay, ma'am, now this is happening, what should I do? There is panic anxiety for the parent. But all of that is also thrown at you directly, indirectly. So this emotional labor that you carry, and it's the most in your profession, what do you do on a daily practice to kind of minimize you getting sucked into those emotional turmoils with all of us?
Frankly speaking, I'm not very good at that. I'm not at all good at that. When a child is sick, he or she is on my mind till the child gets better. Yeah, I'm not very good on that. Yeah, that pain does rub on to me.
Rub onto you. And
Yes.
but you're also a mother. And I've noticed that with my children, both my boys, they will mimic whatever energy I am with. So does that happen? Of course, your daughter is a lot older right now than my kids. But this emotional labor that we carry on, it's the mother's energy that the child will pick on. So how do you deal with your home atmosphere when you are all the time juggling with, this child is not well, I have to be there for them. At the same time, you have to also be there for your family at home.
I've always prioritized my daughter. So, and I always explain to her, she understands that her mother is only helping other children. She's very supportive. She's a very sweet child. From when she was 2 or 3, also, she was supportive, I can say. Because, you communicate to the child, you make the child understand, and then your child realizes that your mom prioritizes you. It's just that she's helping the other parents too. I don't think it's a big challenge, and my daughter turned out fine and good, and she really is proud of her mother.
Yeah, and
She's really proud.
She's also got an entrepreneurial drive, which I know of, and I'm very happy about her venture as well. But again, ma'am, like now, when you're growing up and the mother is, of course, working, and in your case, it's the emotional juggle that you have to do. What I personally love about you is how, with having that emotion first, heart first, with every patient, with every child, there's also logical reasoning. And I see a beautiful balance that you've been able to create over the years, and that's how you approach everything. So I also want to touch upon that there are a lot of young doctors out there who would be looking up to you. What would your message be to all of them to juggle that, balance it out well?
uh, you have to get your priorities right. Very simple. Okay, this is my priority 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all. And be strong in your subject, be empathetic, be ethical, be sincere. Things will fall in place.
Any fears that everyone usually ends up carrying when it comes to, of course, being a parent? You see a patient, you suddenly start fearing, what if this happens in my home? What if this happens to me? How do you block all of those fears and anxieties off?
That was in the very, very, very beginning of becoming a mother. even though I was a pediatrician, like every small symptom my daughter had, like I would imagine all the worst possibilities because we would have read about that and yeah. So, but no, just for the initial period, and then slowly logic takes over, experience. So,
And I think emotional
yeah.
maturity too.
Yes.
Yeah, but speaking of extra information, parenting in this era, I feel, is just torture. I mean, there's so much information. I am sick and tired of Instagram reels. One day protein is good for you, one day carbs is bad for you, one day next thing is good for you. There's so much confusion in our mind. How do we block all of this? Information that is being thrown at us, because I think our generation is just confused about parenting. We call it conscious parenting, but I think it's just a terminology. It's not really conscious. I think we're confused parents today.
Unfollow most of them. Yeah. Follow only a couple of genuine people with good qualifications. So, qualification is very important. Second thing, if somebody say I'm a pediatrician and I'm endorsing some product like milk mix or gummy, then I'm not the right person for you at all. I'm doing a paid promotion. Suppose I'm a dietitian and I'm endorsing some product, I'm doing a paid promotion. I'm not the right person for you. Definitely, I'm not the right person for you. If I am a genuine doctor, like today I may advise you something. Tomorrow, based on your child's situation, based on what science, science keeps advancing, changing. Based on that, I may give you a different plan tomorrow. But if I'm endorsing something, that means I'm stuck there, I'm being paid to endorse that, then I'm not the right person for you at all. Whether it's a dietitian or a fitness expert or a pediatrician or any other doctor.
There are a lot of industries and influencers in my industry that would run out of business with what you've just suggested. But I do want to touch upon the difference today, the grandma's tales, the grandma's rituals that is shared as that extra information on Instagram. Of course, there are days where I'm very grateful that, oh wow, this is something that used to be practiced earlier. Like when my son fell sick with, a terrible cold, we were rubbing garlic, ginger with oil on his feet, and I could tell the difference. At the same time, there was another thing that just popped up about antibiotics, which I think every doctor out there is, the next thing is take an antibiotic. Your approach, of course, is very different. You never really prescribe those hard medicines right away, but there is a huge talk about antibiotics and how it is kind of killing the industry as well, where everything is, the first answer is to prescribe that and take it. So, what are your views about those hard medicines as opposed to letting your body also fight that immunity and also giving a chance to the grandma's rituals?
Actually, antibiotics are great medicines. They've saved millions from deadly infections. The problem comes when we abuse them, when we use them when they are not needed, and when we do not complete the courses, when we are supposed to complete the courses. And not all doctors prescribe antibiotics just like that. Yeah, there are some who do it, or maybe more doctor. I mean,
Today,
many also, according to you.
Most of them do it.
Yeah, but no. I wouldn't. I'll disagree with that. Not most, many. Maybe some to many, but not most. And the problem is quacks, who give really high-end injections. Quacks. They don't have any degree. In our villages and all, there even cities, urban areas, RMPs and all, they give these antibiotic injections randomly, and people go and get it from the pharmacies or from friends. So, and also we are antibiotics are reaching our system through the poultry also. So there is a lot going on now. So many antibiotics are not working for deadly infections now because of this antibiotic abuse. And I really request you all to not abuse antibiotics. Use it only if a doctor has prescribed. Complete the course. Do not repeat the courses. And if you think the doctor has prescribed it unnecessarily for you, please take a second opinion. It's your child, your people, your husband, your father, yourself. So take a second opinion. Absolutely no problem. But don't abuse antibiotics. And see, wisdom. Wisdom is something like which comes, from great grandmother to mother to father, mother, father, and to us. Okay, so let's not write off these things like as if like that useless. But at the same time, if they are like definitely dangerous, say for example, people tie hair on the finger of a newborn baby. Sometimes it can lead to dangerous complications. People give honey on the 21st day or something. Rarely it can lead to paralysis, botulism. So these things, let's not follow the age-old wisdom. But older child, you give little bit of honey in warm water when you have, thick mucus in your body. Okay, you're having cough, cold, thick mucus. It really helps. So there are some things really good. Say take curd for example. Nowadays everybody is saying probiotic. But from ages we have been eating curd. We were encouraged to eat curd, fresh curd. Okay, so there are some things really good in our culture which we need to follow and respect, and at the same time, things which we need to do away with, let us do away with.
So, with your daughter growing up, how much of the grandma's rituals did you apply to her, and the science that you, of course, learned as your profession? The hardest part of treating children, I feel, is you are sometimes also juggling with what the degree prepared you for. Like what you mentioned, that after motherhood it kind of amplified for you, so nobody really taught you that part. So how much of it did you balance out with your daughter growing up?
Suppose grandmother tells my daughter, take some nice warm soup or rasam when you have cold, you'll feel better. Great. But suppose they say you got cold because you have eaten guavas during this season, or you got fever because of guavas, then I would say no, she didn't get fever because of guavas. She got fever because of a viral infection or bacterial infection, whatever. Yeah. So I think we have a good balance at our house.
But it's really ghar ki kahani, right? Because everybody does kind of have those arguments. And today with Instagram and Meta, of course, everything is thrown at you. So you're all the time. In fact, you're even arguing with your partner on which is the correct way to follow. So the parenting in this era, what would you have to say to us?
See, in the very beginning, I had these kind of discussions or difference of opinion even with my mother-in-law. My mom is no more. Maybe I would have had with her also. But let us understand one thing. We want the child to be nurtured in a loving environment. If we keep fighting with each other for every small thing, see, grandmother also loves the child. I also love the child. And ultimately we want the child to be happy. So I think we need to discuss it and come with a consistent approach, because a happy family is what the child needs. So the small things I think we need to discuss, and we need to overcome and build a happy environment around the child, and little bit of our ego should come down. We should be ready to take a step back as long as it's safe for your child. So yeah, please do work towards removing that in-law from mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, and I think your child will be a much happier person. And see, you love people who your loved ones love, then that's magic.
So, ma'am, I realized how tough mommyhood is after I became a mother. I realized everything that my mother must have gone through. Because until that time, you fight with your mom, you call your mom for everything. You're just taking her for granted. You don't realize those sleepless nights, the emotional weight that a mother carries, and her own fears, anxieties. There's so much that goes on. And when I became a mother, I truly started seeing my mother in a different light. And of course, unfortunately, as soon as Nirvan turned 1, she was diagnosed with cancer. And those trying years, uh, I think I was breaking into pieces. And I know that it was the toughest phase of my life. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I know that it's a similar story. Uh,
My mother
losing
too
a
didn't get to
mother.
even see my child.
Oh,
Yeah. So my mother was my biggest, like, what do you say, supporter, and like if I achieve anything, like,
your biggest cheerleader.
yeah, biggest cheerleader, and like, even till date, like, I mean, there is absolutely no replacement. But I can tell you, like, maybe in the beginning it wasn't like this when I got newly married, or in the beginning few years, but now I see my mother in my mother-in-law. I removed that in-law completely.
Sweet, it's mother in
I
love.
mother only.
Yeah, it's mother in love,
Mother.
not mother-in-law. Mother
Yes,
in love, true.
yes, yeah, correct. We
Yeah,
should say mother,
in
mother.
love.
Yes,
Yeah. And
yeah. So I
my
think,
mom-in-law said that to me. She said, "I'm mother in love. I'm not
yes.
mother-in-law." I said, "That's fine."
Yeah, I think beginning, you are so tuned to, like, they'll be different, they'll try to dominate you, kind of. Maybe the mother-in-law also feels insecure. But I think we need to overcome those hurdles and reach a stage where that in-law is totally removed. That really is magic for the family, for the child, for the children, for everybody. We really want our children to be happy and healthy, and this is how you have to be.
True, that's so wonderful actually, because this is also, testing times when the family comes together. I remember clearly I used to also feel very different because, of course, I have a north south love story. I had my own practices back home, and then when you enter a new family, of course, there are differences and cultural differences at that. So, any family, when you're coming together, you have to kind of put your thought process, your values. I think it's like a redefinition, uh, process for everyone in the family. So, also speaking a little about, your husband and you, you're both working individuals. And how does that balance also work out at home? Of course, you have a lot of support from your mother-in-law. But yeah, must mention and honor ma'am here. But yes, how does that partnership work for you too?
So my father stays with us, so he's always there. And mother-in-law visits us pretty often. She stays in a different city. And if there's any person, like, I can just feel free. Like, usually we mothers are very paranoid. No, when we delegate the responsibility of our children to somebody. But when it comes to my mother-in-law, mom, I trust her more than I trust myself to take care of my child. And this is from my heart, I'm saying. So, yeah, and as I said, I always prioritized my daughter. So, like, the number of hours she was in school, I was working. So, I extended my working hours accordingly only.
Same, I did the same thing.
And my father was there for emergencies and all. Sometimes you have to go to the hospital. So my dad was anyway living with us, and is living with us. So that was not a big challenge at all for us. And her dad is very, like, very is a very involved parent. So We have lot of nice talks, drives. He used to, when she was a baby, he used to bathe her. I used to feed her. So we had a very good balance.
So, advice to the parents today, one is of course very clear that listen, everyone stay in love and be in love at home with your families.
Yes.
I think that is
Yes.
very key to creating that beautiful atmosphere, because chaotic atmosphere would lead to traumatic children,
Yes.
which is happening with also the nuclear families and joint families breaking up today. But in this era, do you feel that we are overprotecting our children, we are overexposing our children? Because I got this a lot of people who had also started telling me, don't expose your son to everything that happens at home, the bad and the ugly. Just keep him. This is for my older son at that time. Of course, the younger son is the second chance that we've been given, so we're trying to be even more conscious. But do you feel that, overexposure, overprotection, are we getting all of these dynamics wrong today?
I won't say wrong or right. I think we need to have some basic rules. We know that exposing them to a lot of the social media content can have negative effects on their, they're
Minds.
just
But
growing,
what
they're
about
just
sadness
maturing.
and trauma? Children seeing parents quarrel, or if they see a death in the family. What about all
See,
of those
death is
instances?
inevitable. So if it happens based on the age of the child, we need to, explain to them, and we need to support them for the post-traumatic stress. But about quarreling part, parents need to definitely make a conscious decision, huh, to keep their arguments and their fights away from the child.
Because in terms of, I never ever thought the word stress can be related to young children. I mean, we've all grown up, but we never heard of these terminologies being used for us, or whenever we would pack up, oh, it's because of stress. But today that word is used so loosely. It's been abused completely. Even if it could be a physical thing, everyone is relating it to stress, even when it comes to children. That okay, the child was exposed to too much, or the family atmosphere may not be right. The child is carrying too much emotional baggage. So
That may be
do
true
you
also,
feel
no?
that that is
That may be true also. Maybe earlier nobody bothered. If a child was being hyperactive, or if a child was hitting the other child too much, or was being abusive, if a child was withdrawn, maybe too much importance was not given to these signs from the child. But now, since, see, suppose as an adult I don't get enough sleep. In the morning, I'll be very sleepy. But a child behaves differently. He'll be very hyper. She'll be very hyper. Okay, if a child has seen his parents fighting all the day, obviously that stress will be there. How the child manifests it will be different. Some children become withdrawn, some children keep complaining, I have this pain, I have this pain here, this pain here. When you investigate, you don't find any cause. Some children will just, have bodily movements which mimic seizures. So, like that, they come to us. And they don't do it consciously, it subconsciously. So, whenever a child is behaving differently, withdrawn, or constantly having these complaints which do not have any organic cause, we definitely need to see if he has some stress.
emotional
What kind of
stress?
stress? Bullying at school,
Bullying is also
or
another
bad
factor.
environment at home.
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
But bullying also is something that has destroyed the confidence of so many, and the peer pressure, because today everybody is so glued to the iPad and or a tablet. They just want to play those games, and there's so much peer pressure. So even if you are creating an atmosphere at home where you say no screen, but that same child will come back home and there are showdowns that no, but all my friends are playing. So, and no parent today has that time to invest. And the way we grew up, it was with nature, with our cousins, our siblings. Like, we were taught to play.
together and keep that human connect. But today I don't see that human connect. I see children going more and more into a shell, and issues like ADHD or even cases of autism, I feel, have really increased because of this withdrawal that we're speaking of with emotional stress.
So, first thing, let me clarify, screen time doesn't cause autism, but the symptoms of excessive screen time, if a child is having excessive screen time, the symptoms that he may have may mimic the symptoms of autism. So, how do we know whether he's really having autism or it's because of the screen time that he's behaving like that? Withdraw the screen, work on him having more communication with human beings, taking walks, spending more time with animals, human beings, nature, and then see if the symptoms go away. That means it wasn't autism. Okay, and second thing is, you said like parents are not having time, then you don't have children. That's what. Plan properly. Please plan properly. When you're ready to have a child, when you're ready to give time for your child, then only have a child. First thing. Second thing, now you already have children, but you feel you're not able to give time. But I don't know what you're going to do, but do prioritize your child, because the time lost now you can't make up later. You can't make up later. So, whatever you have to do, do it right now. Take a decision. Whatever happens, I am going to give time to my child. I am going to prioritize my child. I brought my child into this world, and it's my responsibility to ensure that I'm there for my child.
So beautiful. I love that. I think that was one statement. If you can't handle your children, don't have them, because we're just destroying them. I think also with so much societal pressure, I think a lot of them are just having children for the sake of having children, but not really investing that time, because back in the day, we had our mothers also taking care. If the fathers were the providers, the mothers were the nurturers. But this leads me to also.
No, I want to interrupt you here.
Yeah.
In this matter, I want to talk to the pet parents also. If you are ready to be there for the pet, to really take care, then only have the pet. Otherwise, don't.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just dog walkers.
Yeah.
And the house head
Yes.
that's taking care of even the cats.
Yes.
So, again, how do we nurture resilience and not anxiety? Because we have all these wants and dreams, and we know that okay, we want a pet, we want a child, we want to complete that family in our heads, but we don't have that in us anymore to invest that time. Or sometimes I also feel this generation, we're a lot weakened. We are very this is we were very, I think, gifted too much. We've not really, most of us have not really gone out there to truly work hard the way our fathers would have probably created and built. So this generation is also somewhere relying on that with their dreams and the pressures that they feel okay, they need to carry that legacy forward.
Gifted or indulged?
Indulged, that's the word.
Yeah.
Not gifted.
Not
indulged.
Exactly.
We're doing the same with our children.
So since
We're indulging them even worse.
yeah.
So
So
yeah.
once you realize it, I think you should get back to the basics. As simple as that. So you have realized that this is not the way forward, then get back to the basics, get back to the roots. And see, if there is a will, there is a way. So you need to have the will first.
So what are your tips for us to nurture resilience and not anxiety?
Set an example. Be an example to your child. Your child is watching you. So you are anxious, okay, I have to get this. Okay, I'm getting late. Okay. Instead of that, okay, I have a session. I'm running late, but it's okay. But I'm not going to drive carelessly or fast to reach the place. Right? So that kind of thing, okay, fine. Next time I'll make sure that I get ready a little earlier. And like suppose a child has done really good work with his painting. Instead of saying a good job, you have done a good job, say, I really appreciate the hard work you have put in. Okay, so next time he really, the painting doesn't come out so well, he won't be anxious or worried that, he didn't do a good job because he's put in that same hard work there. So this is just one example. I'm not a parenting expert, but yeah, the way you behave in front of the child, the way you handle yourself in front of the child, that has to be perfect, and automatically your child will emulate you.
So, no, I battled this myself because for I think a couple of years with my older one, it was more, why do you have to work? Why do you have to go to work? And because mama was always working, mama would carry him on her hip and, take him the whole countryside, and, it was just work, work, work for me till I, in fact, realized that it took me a lot to have that time management in place because post 4 p.m. today, earlier of course at that time it was 6 p.m., but today after 4 p.m. I don't want to take any work calls. I don't want to be available. Physically, yes, I used to be available at work when Nirvan would be in school. But when he would be back, the calls would continue until the evening. So I think that time management for the child also to realize that life is not just all about just work, and because he had gotten into that perspective about life. So today when he's seeing me take care of his little brother, the perspective is also changing that okay, are you just chilling, where is your work right now? So I feel that like you said, you got to set an example, and for working women, we all have that identity when we work because we've also worked hard to build it. But for our children, one message I do want you to share for the working mothers out there, because I know that we're putting a stone on our heart and going to work.
Don't ever feel guilty. You're doing the best for your child. Don't ever feel guilty.
From being a doctor, you have moved to also an activist side of you. How did that
I
switch
didn't know.
happen?
I was
You were
always.
always for the
Even
cause.
in college, my friends used to
Wow.
say, "My God, you are like."
You're fire. No, I remember.
They
when-
used to call me the lady with the golden heart.
Oh, so
And yeah.
I'm going to call you an iron lady right here because I've seen the cases also that you've of course fought for the justice and the truth. And where I come from is the candle march that we did at India Gate. So for me, my activist approach was there in my college days, and thereafter, of course, we also realized that all these protests and these candle marches that all of us do, where and who sees it, because even when I remember, in fact I must share this with you, this was in Delhi for one of the murder cases, and we were young girls in college, and we all went and stood at the India Gate, and the cops came and they arrested everyone. They said, all of you get into the bus, and everybody, there were lathi charges, there was a lot happening, but it was really sweet. I think this was probably one of those safe incidents because the cops said that we're just going to take one round of the India Gate and we will drop you all safely, but promise us that this is not the method that you will be using later on. You can protest in different ways. And when I shifted here and I've been following your cases, I find that there's so much dignity, and there was a roadmap and a route that you adopted in a very methodical manner. So how did that young girls activism lead to such methods where today of course you've won as well?
When there is intention, and your intention is good, and you're fighting for those who cannot fight for themselves, then you have to have clarity, you have to have method, you have to use all channels parallelly, you have to gather evidence, you have to keep yourself safe also. Activism without keeping yourself safe, without you being safe, is also not done. so good legal counsel. So basically, if some gross injustice is happening, like I just cannot stay quiet. For that, I thank all parents, everybody, journalists, everybody who supported me. But I always forgot to support one one thing, that is the Instagram. So because see how much ever I worked hard, I don't think I would have been able to reach my cause to the logical conclusion had it not been for social media, especially Instagram.
That's my profession. That's my bread and butter. But let's talk about the rituals that ground you on a daily, daily practice for you. The rituals.
No rituals as such. Just wake up and start getting ready to go for work. But have your breakfast peacefully, then start getting ready for work. And when you're having breakfast, your family is with you. And then work. Be sincere at your work. Come back. If you have time, just relax. And I am actually a little bit focusing on my workout kind of thing. Yeah. So here I want to say one thing, if I'm allowed to. There are some fitness experts who keep mocking doctors, especially, making fun of doctors who couldn't really, work on their fitness, body shaming them. Yeah, to those, I want to tell you, we have neglected our health because we were taking care of the health of many, many, many sick people. Okay, but now we realize that we need to take care of ourselves also, and we are. So, you have no right to body shame doctors.
What brings you joy outside your work? I know that working out does give you that
Just being
adrenaline
with
rush.
my daughter, with my family, or watching some Netflix or something, that's all. Nothing more than that.
As regular and
Yeah.
as a regular this thing. Wonderful. Also something that like you mentioned that of course body shaming, and this is something that I think also as an awareness has come very late to me personally about working out. It's all the influence of my husband, honestly. For I think years and years, he kept saying, take care of your body first, take care of your body first. And I've, of course, studied in a convent, so all our nuns used to tell us that, your body is a temple, you got to worship it. But you neglect it. As women, I think we just get so caught up in our
Both
worlds of
physical and mental health.
physical, mental,
And
emotional, I think
emotional health.
everything. Yeah, I think we're just for the
Even
family.
social health.
Yeah, by the family. So what makes you stay grounded and connected to your inner self with everything that you just mentioned, all of this that's around us? We do neglect ourselves, and especially working women.
Everybody in our family is down to earth. We are simple people, and simplicity is the best. Actually, simplicity is the best. Peace of mind, happiness, everything.
It's the highest standard of living,
Yes,
honestly.
yes.
if
The
people
more
know
you
it.
see, you may be the richest person today. There will be another person richer than you. You may be the most powerful person this second. Next second, somebody else may be more powerful than you, and next second, you may just come crashing down. So let's accept that nothing is permanent, nothing is certain. So just be simple, happy. If you can, do some good, but do no harm.
I think there's a lot of unlearning and relearning that all of us have to do. To speak of your legacy, all the children that you have treated, how do you want them to remember you when they turn into adults?
You would have seen my room, all the love, the paintings, the drawings, and the spellings. Instead of writing LOVE, they will write LAVE. I mean, Sivaranjani will be like SAVRNJ something. So they will remember me as their sweet doctor who always was ready to, ready with smiles and everything, and never ever even frowned when a child was running around her room for vaccination, leave alone raising her voice. Yeah, I'm very empathetic to children when it comes to vaccination because I myself am scared of needles.
I'm terrified of needles, so that's why every time I have to then put up that strong face, and it's gonna be okay, but inside you know how you're feeling. Okay, so this brings me to our fun rapid fire. Okay, so one myth about child health care in India that you want to erase.
Children are miniature adults.
Ah, okay. Wonderful. The next one, a phrase which you overuse in your clinic.
It's okay, ma, no problem. I'm there now.
All right, medical instinct or mother's instinct?
Both?
Both? Which one do you go with first?
Both.
Both? Okay, one thing parents don't think enough about.
They don't think enough about preventing accidents and knowing first aid.
Okay, one thing all parents should stop doing immediately. Please say Instagram Reels.
Following too many Instagram influencers, please stop.
It's torturous. Okay, a superpower you wish you had as a pediatrician.
I wish every child in India gets equal care from good qualified pediatricians, rich or poor, living in remote areas or in urban areas. I really want that to happen.
I know it's so heartbreaking actually. Even for me, I think that's become a prayer now on a daily basis. Healthy, happy children.
Yes,
Yeah.
every child
Yeah, it hurts.
deserves, I mean, it's their right, yeah.
It's their right. I know they've come into this life, and we need to show them a beautiful world now. Enough of the nonsense. The flip side of being a children's doctor is.
As you said, the emotional turmoil.
Yeah, and the flip side of being a public figure and a brand, because today you're that.
Living up to the expectations.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Ma'am, one last message for child healthcare in India. What do you think is the future? What can we do, even as parents, on a ground level?
Get empowered with the right knowledge about your child's health, be it mental health, emotional health, or physical health, and prevent accidents and be thorough with first aid. Please.
Thank you so much. It was such an insightful conversation, and I'm glad I got to know a lot of personal drives also for you, for who you are today and how all of us look up to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Gulnar.
you. Thank you.